if black folks don't stop letting politicians gaslight us. Oh my God. What's up, everybody? My name is Montre Bible, your metaphysical guru and tarot reader, but I'm not going to be talking about that today. I'm going to be talking about politics. Ugh, I hate talking about it, but I need to. I want to chime in a little bit and talk about Black Americans in voting, since that became a big issue the past couple of days when Mitch McConnell was talking about, Black Americans vote as much as Americans, and then everybody just went on Twitter talking about I am American, which is true. We do vote. This video talking about why we don't vote. Well, Black Americans typically don't vote on certain things that doesn't really pertain to us. If it's actually affecting our lives, we go out. We support it. If we see someone black that's running, we go out and support it because we want to see Black Americans win. Now, this can be used against us because all skin folk ain't kinfolk, as we can see with the current administration, that they'll put somebody on the forefront to get votes. They'll put someone who is black enough to get votes, to get Black Americans excited. But that doesn't mean that that person is actually for us or is going to push policies that is going to actually help the Black community. When it comes to politics, I think a lot of Black Americans just are burnt. We're burnt. We don't feel optimistic that anything's actually going to happen, because we see it time and again that we vote for certain people and nothing happens. When we make a decision on somebody, we want to see direct results. And politics is not quite like that, especially on a federal level. Federal elections are great. They're very publicized, especially in the media. But when it comes down to change, I think Black Americans need to focus on local elections. We need to look at the city elections. We need to look at the state elections and then deal with the problems. Racism, yes, is always going to be an issue, but you can't vote racism out of the world. You just have to deal with it. There are going to be racist people. There are going to be sexist people. There are going to be people who have all types of prejudices that cause problems with other groups of people. I don't see how you're going to vote that out, because the Democrats typically run on the platform of gaslighting Black Americans about racism. Don't vote for the Republicans because they're racist. Look at this racist Republican. Look how racist they are. For as many racist Republicans there are, and I'm sure there are some, there are also racist Democrats. But no one points a finger at that. Nobody looks at what they've done that is blatantly racist. No one looks at the policies, or no, I won't say that no one looks at them. People don't tend to remember policies that the Democrats have done that are racist or that affect the Black community negatively. We focus on how we're going to make money. We focus on our jobs and how we're going to take care of our family. We focus on our community, our local community. Black Americans, similar to most Black people around the world, are very tribal. We stick to our clique. We stick to our group of people. We stick with our local people. Most Black Americans have a church, and they listen to their pastor, and that's where their loyalty lies. For those that don't do that, they have another group that they may be loyal to. Whether that's an organization, a fraternity, a sorority, it's something. We all have some type of loyalty, unless you're just a hermit like me. The Democrats will constantly gaslight Black Americans on racism and using this whole voting thing as their platform as, oh gosh, like you guys, your voting rights are in danger. And I am about to be 44, and I've never had a problem voting. I've never had a problem getting access to voting. I've never had a problem getting an ID. If people have a problem getting an ID, that's because they don't want one. Period. It's not they can't afford one. You can go in the hood, and most people in the hood have a cell phone. If you can afford a cell phone, you can afford an ID. There is not one person I know that doesn't have a cell phone. Boost Mobile, Metro, or the people that don't have an ID don't want one. I mean, my little brother was an example. Same family. He went the longest without a driver's license, driving illegally. He didn't want one. He just didn't want one. Different generation too, younger. Did he have the money? Yep. Did he want one? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of times that, people can live their lives without certain things, then fine. The issues in the black community are mostly school, education, jobs, and money, and policing, which could be a whole nother video in itself. But these are not federal issues. They're state issues, they're city issues. These are things that need to be decided on a local city level, and black people, black Americans need to be more active in their local government and in their city, and most are. But then every city's different. Every city has its own corruption. Los Angeles is different from Dallas and New York City and Houston and Austin and Atlanta. all of those cities are very different, and all those black communities in those cities are very distinctly different. Black people have access to voting. Where do people mostly vote at? School and church. And every black American knows where a school and a church is. Definitely a church. And this is where they have voting at. Now, this whole thing of, we need to mail out ballots to everybody, that's the Democrat idea, or just throwing ballots out to everybody because, of the past coronavirus thing. And that's not an issue right now, especially down south. Down south, everybody's doing whatever they want to do. I don't know what's going on in your city or your state, but life is pretty much normal. Or getting access to voting polls is not an issue, okay? At least in my city, it's not. I can only speak for Dallas because this is where I live. It's not an issue. They have early voting, so sitting in line, if people are like, oh, I can't vote because I have to work all day and the polls are closed by the time I get up, they have early voting. The thing is, a lot of people don't know when the voting is happening, when the early voting is happening. That's education. And that's on a personal thing, but they put it on Facebook, they tell you when to vote, so there's no excuse, and that's not a racial thing. That's a personal ignorance thing. That has nothing to do with your race. Having an ID has nothing to do with race. That's a personal choice. Having access to vote, the biggest issue in the black community is getting people to get off their butt and go vote. That's the biggest issue. But the reason why black Americans don't vote, because they don't care about a lot of these issues. They don't care about who the railroad commissioner is. They don't care who the judge in the 5th precinct is. And they don't know who it is. If they don't see anybody that they recognize on there, they don't care. And most of the time when I go and vote, I don't know those people. And if I don't know, I know that someone from the hood definitely don't know. Because I try to keep up to date on most things. So when it comes down to federal issues, they don't care because they don't see the change. We don't see the change. We had a whole black president, and pretty much nothing really changed in the black community. Maybe in the LGBT community, we got, some marriage rights. But let's talk about that. It has been, from my experience and my thought, that the majority of the black community is conservative. The black community is not a liberal community. The Democrats think they own black people I think is racist. When Biden said you're not black if you don't vote for him, that's probably the most racist thing I've heard. And for the black community to continue to support the Democrat Party with blatant racism is beyond me. And I'm not saying that the black community should support the Republicans. For those that do vote on the real issues at hand and vote on the local elections to really initiate change, because all politics is about how money is handled. Social issues be damned, because you can't, like I said, you can't vote out racism. Racist people are going to remain racist. There's racists on both parties. You can't get rid of that. If people don't like a certain people, you're not going to force them to like you. The black community is very conservative when it comes to the gay community. I've been called out of my name by other black people more so than white people or Latinos or anything like that. The black community is very, very religious, mostly Christian, and has a lot of Christian ideals. Those are very conservative things. They're not open to outside spiritual practices. I'm a tarot reader. I get called Satanist, I get called a fag, I get called a lot of stuff. If it ain't Jesus, don't talk about it. And sexuality. Most black Americans have very conservative sexual views. There's still black gays who get kicked out of the house for being gay. So we won't even talk about the trans issues. All the times when you hear about people getting killed and trans women getting killed, it's happening by other black folks. I'm sure most don't really care what you do. It's about how you act in public, though. It's what you do with your family. You know, we have like Lil Nas X, who's very open about his sexuality. But on the other end, you see, you know, other rappers like, what's his name, Boosie? That's a weird name for a rapper. That sounds like, well, we won't go there. He represents a large group of black Americans who don't agree with homosexuality. But, you know, Little Boosie, I can't even say the name. He's not the best example of black men. Because, like I said, he had a party with where he invited, a stripper or a stripper to do things to his son, his teenage son, and that's child abuse, and that's sexual abuse. So there's a lot of issues when it comes to black Americans and what we find acceptable and what we don't. Black Americans tend to have a set idea on how the family should be. The man should run the household. Black women still have a say. Black women are very strong. That doesn't take away from their strength because a black man is running the house. So the feminist movement and black women don't quite fit because black women have always had power, especially in the family. Especially in the family. Because Big Mama has the last say, right? We're a very matriarchal culture. But the man still has a place. So when it comes to politics, and you get politics involved with the Democrat Party gaslighting and saying, you know, this is your problem, this is the problem, this is what you need to be focused on. I think the Democrat Party is really blind to what actually black Americans need. And we have so many politicians that are so old that they've been indoctrinated into that system that they're not really helping. They're not really helping. Nothing's changing. So I say screw the federal government. We need to focus on the local issues. We need to focus on the local elections, the state elections, because I don't know what's going on in Georgia. I just know what's going on in Texas. You find me a racist Republican and I can find you a racist Democrat. So them being racist, okay, they're all racist. Or they've done some racist things, or they've voted on some racist policies. We have the right to vote. Everybody has access to mail-in ballots. You can request an absentee ballot if you want. No one's stopping you. That's not a racial issue. So to be gaslit and say, oh, if we don't have mail-in ballots, that's racist. No. Far as I know, I can ask for a mail-in ballot. I can request an absentee ballot and still do it. I'd rather just go to the poll and vote. And most people can just go to the poll and vote. For people who are like, whoa, coronavirus, well, wear your mask and go vote. If you can sit there and wait in line for a COVID test, you can go and vote. And if the people that don't want to vote are just not voting, they don't want to vote because they don't know the issue, they don't know who's running, they don't care about who's running, they don't care what they're running for. The most of the things that they see comes from the news. So only thing they care about is the federal elections because that's the only thing that the news is talking about. It rarely talks about the local elections. Black people can't have money. That's why there's so many markets that are directed toward us. That's why on Black History Month, everything turns blackity black because they want to get the black dollar. We can afford IDs. We can afford it. If we don't want it, we just don't buy it. We get passionate about stuff. We're a very emotional culture. We get passionate about things. That's typically how we vote, on our emotional stuff, which we shouldn't. That's the worst way to vote, on emotional issues. But that's what I'm talking about, gaslight. And that's what the media does. The mainstream media gaslights and gets Black Americans emotional about something, and then we go and we vote on an issue that's not an emotional issue. If we want to see change, it's going to be on the local level. That's it, period. I heard the right to vote is getting taken away. No, it's not getting taken away. You have the right to vote. You can vote. Just go do it. But educate yourself on what's happening. Educate yourself on who's running. And if you don't care, then don't vote. But if you want to see change, it's going to be on the local level. The Democrats are just doing stuff because they want to stay in power. And that's failing because they're not really doing anything as usual. Well, does that matter to the Black community? Did we see any change when the Republicans were in power? Did we see any change now that the Democrats are in power? And I'm just talking about the Black community, period. Where you have the power is in your community. And a lot of Black folks will vote based upon what the pastor said. Get out of that mentality. Your pastor may have his own political beliefs. Everything he said is not gold. But that's neither here. That's another video in itself. Black Americans are very conservative. I remember when George W. Bush came to the church I used to go to and had say, I didn't see the Democrat candidate at the time coming. What was his name? Was it Kerry? Scary Kerry? He didn't come to the church. George W. Bush came, but George W. Bush is from Texas. And he came and spoke to the congregation. And what was the main thing? I think the big issue was, back then, when George W. Bush was running, everybody voted out of their emotions because of marriage equality. Should gay people be married? And I bet you a bunch of Black people voted Republican because they were very conservative about marriage. Don't vote out of your emotions. Know the issues, know the candidates, and vote on the local level. That's pretty much all I can say on this. So remember, your reality is yours. On a spiritual level, we can talk about that later, because that's what I usually do. I talk about how what we manifest in our lives does create our reality. But while you're manifesting and trying to create your reality, make sure you're actually doing something so that your reality can actually become, okay? It's intention and action, okay? So this video is mostly about action. So if you have a different opinion, that's fine. Leave me a comment, you know, whatever. Be cool in the comment section, because I know this is a hot topic and a hot button. But I would love to hear your thoughts about it and what you think, and, you know, especially when it comes to voting, and make your reality happen. Because if you don't do it, then who will? I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.